towards the end of summer. It's still summertime in the garden, but it's also when, by this point, you have used zucchini about everything you can think of. Maybe you're not checking it as much, like me, which means you go out and you find massive zucchini. Even if you do check it all the time, you always find a big one. And I'm not one that likes to fill them like a boat. I've just never enjoyed that. But growing up, what did we always make? Zucchini chocolate cake. Is it healthy? Not at all. Does it taste like zucchini? You hardly even know it's in there, but it's a way to use up zucchini and it's delicious. Again, one of those church cookbook recipes. I talk about them all the time. You know why? Because they're good. They're tried and true. Our grandmas made them. You should too. To start, I've switched it up a little bit from the original, but I start with some butter. That way you get the flavor of the butter. You just put it right into your mixer. And then I supplement it with some oil. The original recipe had only oil. And that's usually just because cakes with oil are always gonna be moist. They're always gonna kind of come out consistently, but the butter gives it a little bit more flavor. So I mix the two. And then to that, we're gonna add some sugar. Yeah, this isn't a health cake, guys, no. This is just a good old-fashioned cake. And it kind of has a little bit of a twist in it, which I like. It has a little bit different flavors in it, so I'm gonna add some sugar, and then we're just gonna cream it up. Since there's that oil in there, it won't cream light and fluffy like just butter would, but we'll cream it here for a couple minutes and then keep going. So as you can see, it's not like normal light and fluffy. The oil actually makes it a lot more wet, obviously. So it creams up, it's consistently mixed together. That's more important. So we're gonna add a couple eggs. Yeah, you should probably always crack them into another bowl before you do this. But you know what, we're all friends here. So if I get shell in there, I'm just gonna pull it out. I don't feel like getting a bowl dirty. Like I said, church cookbook recipe, you do it like they did it. We're gonna mix in the eggs and then add some milk. Just a few seconds just to get them mixed in. So it originally calls for sour milk. A lot of church cookbooks, a lot of old recipes are gonna say sour milk. Why is that? Because a lot of times they would have milk that went sour and you needed ways to use it. All you need to do is add a couple teaspoons of vinegar or lemon juice, fill it up with milk, and you have sour milk. So it's really simple. You can also use buttermilk if you happen to have that all the time. It kind of gets that nice thicker consistency. Gonna mix that in. Almost splattered everywhere. Then we're gonna just, of course, add some vanilla. It's a good cake. It has vanilla. What doesn't? You know, sometimes I measure vanilla, often I don't because it's vanilla. You know it's gonna be good. You don't really need to mix the vanilla in too much, but this is when I start adding my dry ingredients. So for that, you need some flour. It's pretty much a simple cake like you've seen in a lot of other recipes. And we're gonna start with the flour. I just always scoop and then push off. Flour is one thing, you know, you don't want to over add flour. So a lot of times when you scoop and you put a lot in there, if you would weigh it out, you're getting a lot more flour in there if you scoop it in because it's pressing it down in, almost tamping it down. You don't want to do that. And then some cocoa. It's a chocolate cake. And so you of course want to add the chocolate. We're gonna just add right into there. If you think you've lumpy chocolate, you should sift it. Oh, guys, it already smells delicious. I'm gonna mix this up, let it incorporate, and then we're gonna add some interesting spices. It's a chocolate cake, but it's amped up a little bit. So before all the flour gets mixed in, I'm gonna add the leavener, which is some baking powder, baking soda, pretty simple, all standard, what you're gonna have on hand. And then the spices. This is kind of different, but it really works well. Don't ask me why. It has some cinnamon, which sounds weird with the chocolate, but seriously, this already smells. I'm not gonna joke when I say we probably had this once a week growing up. We always had, during zucchini season, we always had it. And then a little bit of cloves. Now cloves you can really overdo, so you only want a certain amount, obviously. Add some salt, because anything sweet needs some salt. And we're gonna mix all that in. So I said this was zucchini chocolate cake. We need zucchini. Now when they get big like this, the inside gets so seedy and pithy. So I cut it in half, cut the ends off. I take all the seeds out with a spoon, so you're really just left with the meat. Now, traditionalists out there, grandmas of the world, they're gonna think it's gross that I don't peel it. I don't peel it. I started not peeling it when I was younger because I was like, why? I mean, at least make yourself feel a little bit better. You're getting a little bit of fiber in the peel. You don't taste it. I'm not trying to hide the zucchini that's in there. I don't want people to think I'm hiding a vegetable in there. I don't care if people know there's zucchini, and I personally kind of like that they're gonna see that I have some flecks of green. Somehow I managed to do the exact right amount. You can tell I've done this before. You can peel it whatever way works for you. I just use a hand peel, not peel, but shred. I use a hand shredder. It's kind of like a cheese shredder. To me, they work really well, but you can use a box one too if that's what you have. Whatever you have. And then to that also, chocolate chips. Because it's a chocolate cake, it amps it up a little bit more. This was always my favorite part when I was younger. And you know what, just to make it really nostalgic, I'm doing milk chocolate chips. So I'm gonna mix that in. You don't wanna overmix it since the flour's in there, because the more you mix something after the flour's added, it adds gluten. So we're just gonna mix it until it's just incorporated. Really what the zucchini does, what does it do? Other than be pointless, it has a ton of moisture to this cake. So it's an extremely moist, easily, beautifully cut, perfect texture cake. I'm gonna clean up, we're gonna put it in a bundt pan, and we're gonna bake it. So, standard bundt pan. Why did they used to bake everything in bundt pans? There's really no reason other than on denser cakes sometimes having the hole in the center and heat come up through the center helps it bake more evenly. I think it's also just a pretty thing to do. I'm gonna spray it with my favorite baking spray. You know, you could butter it, flour it, but you could also just buy it with flour in it. And this is what honestly works for me every time. It gets through all those crevices, gets around all it's perfect. So we're gonna take this off. I always do that final mix probably on my own because I just wanna make sure everything at that bottom of the mixer is getting up into the batter, because sometimes at the very bottom of a mixer, it kind of doesn't. And yes, guys, at the very end, I put my hands in it. Why? How on earth are you supposed to clean off a beater without your hand? I know. On TV shows, they don't do that. But guess what, guys? In real life, you do that because you have to. And you know, you're gonna taste it, okay? You're just going to. Let's just be honest here, we're friends. So I'm doing the final mix. Tastes delicious, by the way. I'm gonna just spread that around. There's a lot of batter. It's a nice full cake. That's what I kind of love about this one. It's a nice kind of, not dense as in heavy, but just a nice, kind of rich, good cake. And it's one with those spices that sounds odd. You could totally frost it if you wanted to. You could add something, but you don't need to. On its own, it's kind of just perfect. Clean up those edges if you get any on there because they will burn as you're baking, so you don't want any up around the rim or anything. Spread it out a little bit just to make it even, to make it smooth, make it bake a little bit more evenly. Then I'm just gonna throw it into the oven. We're gonna let it bake and we'll have a beautiful cake to eat with zucchini, so it's healthy. It's like lunch. Okay, this came out just perfect. You can see it has filled out that cake. And it is beautiful and full. And guys, you did not tell me earlier, my doors were open to the pantry. I closed them now, so the baking room is complete. So I'm gonna let this cool in here for just about 10 minutes. You'll see as it cools, it pulls in slightly from the sides, thanks to that good baking spray. And then when it's come a little bit cooler, easier to handle, I'm gonna flip it out over onto the rack here just so it can cool completely. So at first, you don't wanna do it right away because then it will cause the cake to fall in because it's too hot. And so that steam will just make it collapse. So you wanna let it set in the pan for a little bit to cool, then we'll turn it out. Important. So this has cooled some. I don't wanna wait too much longer, so it's still a little warm, but it's starting to pull in. I always get nervous when I do a bundt cake because I can't make sure it's gonna come out well before I do it just for you guys, so bear with me if it doesn't. This one usually always does. We're gonna turn it over. We're gonna hopefully see a beautiful cake. A couple of the chocolate chips. There, we'll just put them back in. Guys, this is just, no one's gonna know except a few thousand of my friends online, so we're good. We're gonna just, look at that. That's a gorgeous cake. See, these cakes always turn out so good. It's moist, you can just tell. It's risen and it's full, which I love. Let me find a knife. Let me find a knife. I would usually say let it cool for like 20 minutes here now. You can see I'm not gonna do that, so still a little warm. So you know what my mom and grandma would always do with cake, chocolate cake especially, only chocolate cake growing up? Always have it with applesauce. I did it once in a while, it's okay, I get it. But is it like, I don't know. She'd also do it with Oreos and applesauce, which, whatever. I mean, guys, I know. Now some of you are gonna say, I would so peel that. You can peel it if you want. I like seeing what it is. And I'm not hiding anything. I'm gonna tell people, this is chocolate zucchini cake. It's delicious. It really is. It's really good. I think it's a perfect end of summer thing because you get just a little bit of the spices, the warming spices with the cinnamon, the clove, just kind of lending its way into fall. Still chocolatey, zucchini. My dog, Kip, he wants it all, but he won't get any of it. Sorry, I will give you a treat. He's obsessed right now just with dried sweet potatoes. It's a treat for dogs, who knew? So I'm gonna eat this. I'm gonna enjoy it. Go make some cake, share this around, tell everyone, forget zucchini butts, just make chocolate cake. It's good. Oh, and it freezes perfectly.